On July 16th, 1941, Joe DiMaggio extends his record hitting streak to 56 games in a row. And the following day, but little did he know, the following day would be the first time in almost 3 months that he would not get a hit in the game. Here's the story behind this iconic record and moment in baseball and why it's a record that will probably never, ever be beaten. Today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to a rapid deep dive in sports history every day. And today's trivia question to listen out for is, how many games is Joe DiMaggio's longest hit streak? And here's a hint, it's not 56 games. Listen to the entire episode to try to figure out the answer. So before we get into this amazing hit streak, let's give a brief overview of who Joe DiMaggio was. Because there was a time where he was the biggest athlete in America, even possibly bigger than Babe Ruth at his time, as he transcended baseball. Now, he was born in 1914 as Giuseppe DiMaggio, and he shortened it to Joe as it was one shorter and to kind of fit in the American style, as it was a very Italian name. He was one of 9 kids from Italian immigrants, and he wasn't the only baseball player in the family. He had 2 other brothers that played professional baseball. But Joe didn't do very well in school, and he actually dropped out to work some odd jobs to help the family. And eventually in 1931, he started playing semi-pro baseball. And his brother Vince was playing for the San Francisco Seals, part of the Pacific Coast League, which was a minor league team for the majors at the time. And his brother Vince convinced the general manager to allow Joe to fill in at shortstop. And he made his professional debut on October 1st, 1932. But the next year is when he would really put his name out there for Major League Baseball to take notice. As in his first full rookie year, he went on the second longest hit streak in minor league baseball history, hitting in 61 starting in May, going all the way to July, just 8 games shy of the record set by Joe Wilhoit in 1919, which those are still the top 2 hitting streaks in all of minor league and Major League Baseball. So this really caught the attention of Major League Baseball. That hit streak jumped him up to get noticed. But sadly, in 1934, he suffered a knee injury where he tore a ligament in his knee. But he was able to rehab, and in the 1935 season, he was able to hit with a .398 batting average, have 154 RBIs and 34 home runs, leading the Seals to a Pacific League title and being named the league's most valuable player. And at that point, Major League Baseball could not stand by. They needed to get him up to the majors, and that's when the New York Yankees signed him for a contract worth $8,500 in 1936. And he came out on fire. He actually got to bat ahead of Lou Gehrig in the batting lineup and set a franchise record for rookies, hitting 29 home runs, which was a record for the Yankees that stood until Eric Judge broke it in 2017. And he would continue his success the following year, hitting 46 home runs with a batting average of .346. So he wasn't only hitting for power, he was also hitting to get on base. And he showed off his skills of getting hits routinely and would go on to get the nickname Yankee Clippers by the Yankees play-by-play announcer Arch McDonald, who likened his speed and range in the outfield as a Pan Am airline. And in 1939, he would go on to win his first batting title with a batting average of .381 and would win his first career MVP, leading the Yankees to hit their 4th consecutive World Series. He was on top of the sports world, and that's when he did something that took him even higher than he already was. See, prior to 1941, the record for the longest hit streak was held by Willie Keller, who hit 44 straight in the National League in 1897. So it had almost been 50 years. And it all started in 1941 on May 15th. In the first inning of the Chicago White Sox, Joe hit a single and got an RBI, scoring the only run that they would score in that game, losing as the Yankees lost that game 13-1. And he continued his success game after game as previously him getting multiple hits in consecutive games was not unusual. He had a great batting average, and he had done small streaks here and there. But once his streak reached 13 games, it started to get attention by the New York City press. But Joe just kind of shrugged it off as it was something he'd done before. As you remember, in the minor leagues, he had a 61-game hit streak. So this was nothing unusual for him. And on June 16th, Joe matched the franchise record for the Yankees, extending his streak to 29 games. But that didn't mean he didn't have close calls. In the 30th game of the hit streak, he didn't get a hit till the 7th inning, which was one he legged out to get a single, hitting it to the shortstop, just barely beating out the throw, making it his only hit of the game. And by this time, everyone was tracking each time he came up to the plate, was he going to continue his record? As previously he had said, he doesn't think a whole lot about it. But after his 38th game, he publicly expressed his desire to top the hit streak record. And it even got so that pitchers were trying actively to end the streak. As they faced the Athletics, he faced Johnny Babbage, who had actually faced DiMaggio during his 61-game hit streak in the Pacific League. And he said he was not going to give him a pitch he could hit, breaking his streak. And each time he pitched wild balls that were impossible to hit, basically intentionally walking him. But in the 3rd inning, after throwing 3 unhittable pitches, his 4th pitch was well outside the strike zone, but reachable, and DiMaggio lunged for it and guided the ball between Babbage's legs and ended up being a double. And this was, in Joe DiMaggio's words, the most satisfying hit of the whole streak. Now, the modern record at the time for a hit streak was done by George Slicer, who hit 41-game streak in 1922. And though the press made huge announcements on July 5th when he actually passed Slicer, getting his 42nd hit. And he did this after his bat he had been using was stolen out of the dugout, and he had to use a teammate's bat and was able to get a single to break the modern record. But everyone wanted to see if Joe could break the overall record. On July 2nd, facing off against the Red Sox at Yankee Stadium, in his 3rd at-bat, he came up and hit a home run right over Ted Williams' head, giving him the longest hit streak in history at 45. But as we all know, he didn't stop. He continued to go and go. And the question was, how long would it go? And even through the All-Star break, he continued after that. First making it to 50, and excitement kept going and going. And no one knew when it was going to end. Every pitcher was giving them his best outing as they wanted to be the pitcher that ended the streak. And on July 17th, the Yankees were facing off against the Indians in Cleveland, and starting pitcher Al Smith was giving him the best stuff he could get to try to get DiMaggio out, making him hit ground balls and even giving him a walk. And towards the end of the game, reliever Jim Bagby came in and got him to ground out to shortstop to get him to hit into a double play. And then going into the 9th inning, the Yankees were winning 4-3. And with runners on bases, some argued they wanted the Yankees to intentionally give up a run to have the game go into extra so Joe could get another shot. But they didn't, and his streak ended at 56 games. And Joe was devastated, as he was going to get a huge deal from Heinz 57 if his streak actually ended at 57 instead of 56. But he also knew it had to come to an end. And he ended up, during his streak, having 91 base hits and 223 at-bats, with a batting average of 408. He had 55 runs batted in and included 15 home runs. And he also scored 56 times. And what's crazier is he didn't stop. Even after this game, he went on a 15-game hit streak after. So in a span of 73 games, he was able to reach 72 times. In that year, he would become the AL MVP again for the 2nd time, and wouldn't even win the batting title that year, as Ted Williams would hit over 400, and Joe would finish with a batting average of .357. Now, Joe would continue his career, although in 1943 he would take 3 years off to join the military, and would come back in 1946 with the Yankees, where he played his entire career, and would shoot into superstardom fame as he married actress Dorothy Arnold, who he later got divorced in 1939, and go on to marry Marilyn Monroe in 1954, which they would later get divorced later on that same year. But they continued to stay friends throughout their lives. And Joe later on went to become the spokesman for Mr. Coffee after he retired in 1951 due to injuries. which he remained the face of Mr. Coffee for over 20 years. And since then, the closest anyone has ever gotten to breaking his record was in 1978 when Pete Rose was able to get to 44 games. But no one else since has gotten over 40. And as I say, this is one of those unbreakable records as the game has changed so much, as the game has become so specialized with different relief pitchers and closers and players taking time off for injury risk. No one believes this record will ever be beaten in baseball history. And although Joe passed away in 1999, his number has been retired by the Yankees and a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame when he was inducted in 1955 and part of the Major League Baseball All-Century team, finishing his career with a batting average of 325 with over 2,000 hits, over 300 home runs, and over 1,500 runs batted in. One of the greatest players of his era, the likes of which we may never see again. And I want to thank you for listening to this great streak we learned all about today. And if you like this, please hit that little share button, share it with a friend, shoot them a text or a DM, or send them something so they can get in on all the sports history that we're learning today and in the future. And come back tomorrow for more daily sports history. And did you catch the answer to today's trivia question? What was Joe DiMaggio's longest hit streak? And the answer was 61 when he was in the Pacific minor leagues. Years before, he had his famous 56-game streak.